everybody. How are you? We're going to talk about outlining today so that you can get some of your research organized and your ideas on paper. And this will be a review for most of you, but just make sure that you just listen anyway, just in case there are any pointers that I have that you haven't heard before or you've forgotten. There may be special things I'm looking for that other instructors have not asked for before. All right, so organizing and outlining. We are going to take a look. We've got here. Why do we outline anyway? It's not just extra work, I promise you. It is to help you get your thoughts organized. Oh, I'm sorry, my cat is sneezing in the background. It's always exciting around here. Okay, why do we outline? We do outline to organize our information so that our audience can follow our main points easily and so that we don't repeat ourselves. There's a sample outline here. You'll see you either have a thesis or a purpose at the top. You don't announce that when you start your speech, but you just put that on there for yourself. And then here we have our main points, and we use Roman numerals for that. And then you indent and use capital letters. That's the first level of outlining. The next level would be to indent some more and put 1, 2, 3, or 1 and 2. But we organize to get our information together. Make sure our points are balanced so we can take a look visually and see if we have 3 points here. We see we have 3 points here, right here, and 3 here. And then we have 3 to fill in here. They don't have to be exact, but you shouldn't have like 8 for this number, and then when you get to the incompetent janitor of your apartment, you only have 2. You want it a little more balanced. I'll get out of there. I'd like to get out of this pen. There we go. We also want to make sure that we have enough support. So right here I have examples, but I don't really have enough support like details, statistics, or quotes. And I can tell that by just looking at it. It's really brief information. Our support would go under each A and each B and each C as a fact or statistic or a story or an example. So we can look at our speech, even though it's going to be oral later, and see what things are. See how things are turning out. So there's different types of outlines. There's keyword outlines, which are just really brief words and phrases. Then we have full sentence outlines as well, and those are the type that we use to really get our ideas thoroughly on paper. What I'm showing you here is a full sentence outline. And that develops after you work on your keyword outline. Your keyword outline just has little words and phrases, just like this section right here. That's part of a keyword outline. But a keyword outline itself would be like that throughout the entire paper. Parallel structure is an added bonus that is using the same types of phrases. So here I have Native Americans, African slaves, European settlers, so I have adjective and noun, adjective and noun. That makes it very balanced. So if you can do that, that works. You could have all verbs, which is as long as they're similar. And then once you get to another letter A, like down here, you can possibly just have 1 and 2, or 1, 2, 3, 4. This should have been broken up much more than it was. It shouldn't be a whole paragraph. Whether or not it was full sentences. All right, so keywords have phrases. Full sentence outline has full sentences, as the name implies, and it also has your sources in there. So for us, for speech writing, we want to start with a topic outline and then develop it later into the full sentence outline. Okay. We're going to start with our purpose statement. Put that at the top of the outline. I showed you that on the last slide. And try to word that so that the audience is key for you, so that you're focusing on what you want your audience to do. You want them to learn something. You want them to agree with you on something. For an informative speech, you want them to agree with you. So you would start with, I want my audience to agree. Oh, I'm sorry. For persuasive speech, it's agree. For informative speech, it's to better understand or learn. I want my audience to learn. Want my audience to better understand. That's how you would start that. Make sure your purpose is one sentence, not a paragraph or 2 sentences. We want it brief so that we can really narrow in what we're trying to say. Okay. Should not be a question, and we don't want the word about in our sentence. So our purpose is really a blueprint for what we're doing. Everything in your speech should be relevant to achieving the purpose. So we want to figure out how to organize our material. And we're going to do that by looking at the organizational patterns available to us and picking the one that's most appropriate for what we're going to do. So here are some of the patterns that you might be able to use in your speech. And it really depends on your topic. So we're going to look at a few of these and see which ones are effective. The time pattern. It's very straightforward. It's chronological order, whatever you do first, second, or third. And this would work really well if you were giving a demonstration speech or discussing history, anything with how to do something. And you see I have Roman numerals here next to the main points. Right here are Roman numerals. And that identifies our main points. Again, over here, Roman numerals identify our main points, and then indented and everything lines up nicely. So here's an example of registering for classes. Browse the catalog, whether it's online or not. Select your courses, and then register and pay your tuition, of course. A historical speech could cover the discovery of America, and then going on through the next couple of things that happen in time. So we have sequential order. You might use spatial order too, and that is looking at a map or a room and starting at the top and going to the bottom, going left to right, clockwise. Well, clockwise is one, so we could start at the left side of the map and move our way east. Oh yeah, that's my joke for you there. So spatial is not used real often, but it could be used if you're describing a thing or a room or a space. Here's an example of a speech that would work with that. It is a speech about the Eiffel Tower, and specifically the design of the Eiffel Tower. So we have 3 sections here, 1, 2, 3. And the order of them went from lowest to middle to top. You could do the reverse. You could go top to middle to bottom, depending on what approach you're taking. So here we have a full sentence approach as well. Another type of speech you could use spatial for is if you were describing equipment on a horse, which is called tack. You could start from the front of the horse and work your way this way to the rear end. The other option is use chronological order and start with what you put on first. That could be debatable depending on who taught you, but that's an option too. It's a personal choice in some cases. Topical is a third, very common, most popular type of pattern. That is where you just group your information into 3 main ideas or 4 main ideas. Could be 2, but you group similar things. And then you start with the most important or the least and work your way up. So if you start with the most important, You hit your audience with the most exciting part first, keep their interest, and then you move on to less important and least important. The other way to do it is to start with the least important and create anticipation and climax by providing more and more important information as you get to the end of the speech. I have a speech here about giant dog breeds. Even though I'm a cat lady, I do like dogs too. This was our Great Dane Freya, and one of the giant dog breeds out there is the Great Danes. Irish Wolfhounds are cool too, and so are Mastiffs. But perhaps I just want to discuss those three. So, a little quiz here. If I was giving a speech on the making of Star Wars, which pattern would I want to use? It didn't give you the answer, did it? The pattern I would want to use is chronological order. What happened first, second, third when they made the film. Alright, so here is another slide. I'd like to give you a sample speech to work with to show how I would work through the thought process. So I have done ballroom dancing on and off for years. So I am going to go with something that I like, something I enjoy, a hobby. I want my audience to learn how to dance the tango. Now, what is the best organization pattern for this? I would want to think about this during my research, after my research. I might even know before I get my research started. Every speech is different, but because I'm teaching you how to do something, it's most likely going to be chronological. The first thing I need to do is develop my main points. What are 2 or 3 or 4 ideas, could be 5, that I want to cover in my speech? When I am first putting together an outline, I want to use keywords, do that topic keyword outline. It's much briefer, it's a way to just jot down your ideas. And use Roman numerals to identify those major points. So 1, 2, and 3. It could be 4, there could be 5, there could be 6. Depends on your time limit and your topic. Alright, so we went through what to do next, and that is to divide your major points into subtopics. So I just picked the third one. Doesn't matter what you start with, really. Just pick one of your main points and then try to figure out what you'd like to say about that. So one of my main points was the basics step. So I've divided that into 2 things. I want to talk about footwork and rhythm when dancing the basics step. You see, you indent and have capital letters. And then have everything line up. This is a topic outline. So after you have decided on these subpoints for each main point, you're going to add some details. That's what makes it interesting. So we're going to help our audience figure out what it is we're trying to say, or just help them better understand. And we're going to use evidence or support to do that. And a lot of that comes from our research. Some comes from our personal experience. But we can use facts, statistics, which are numerical values. We can use examples, specific instances of something. So if I said, I like dogs, well, give me an example. Well, I like Great Danes. Okay. Testimony would be quotes from people who have expertise in the area or just have experience in that field. Narratives are stories. Stories can involve the audience, get them to listen. Personal experience is really helpful. I could add in any observations I am making about the subject, or if I had a class or a personal story to share. And then comparisons work well too when you show the similarities and differences between 2 things. So those details help illustrate your general ideas. And my recommendation is for every A, B, or C, all those capital letters, add 2 pieces of evidence at least. Not just 1, but 2 at least. So a fact and a statistic. 2 statistics, an example, and a narrative. You can mix it up. So here, what we've got is one of our main points, number 3, the basic step, which I had divided into footwork, and then rhythm was B. What I want to do is just look at that first capital letter, footwork, and decide what can I say about that. And I'm going to give details. And I divide that with numbers 1 and 2, and any additional details with smaller letters. So with footwork, with dancing the tango, you have to know what foot to start on. Men step forward on their left foot. Women step back on their right foot. And when they're facing each other, they move together. So starting foot. The other thing about footwork I would add is how to begin the step. Do you step with your heel first? Do you dance on your toes for this dance? How do you do that? So for this dance, we step with our heel first. And it would be really good if I had some sources in here somewhere. So I added something from a book. It could be from a website or an interview. But I might say something like, according to the book Ballroom Dancing, in the Argentine tango, you would use your heel to lead when stepping forward. And then perhaps I have a comparison next with the International and American tango, and if they are different or the same when you step. All right, so when you are using your support, whether it be fact or statistic or an example, you have to be careful about how you use that information. It can be manipulated. So let's see what tips I have for you. Well, with statistics, don't have too many of them. If you have too many numbers, people get confused. So what you would want to do if you have a lot of data and you find it very important to share, I would put that on a slide, maybe in a chart or a graph. Or write it down on a board or a PowerPoint slide. If you have too many numbers, people get confused. You also want to look at how those statistics were gathered. Did the study do a good job of summarizing what they found? How was it conducted? Did they only interview 10 people when there should be probably hundreds or more interviewed or surveyed to get information? And how recent is that material? When you're dealing with statistics, you want something very recent, especially with science and technology. For anything though, my guideline is to not use anything older than 5 years. No more than 5 years unless you're dealing with a history subject. And just be aware, statistics can be manipulated. When someone says the average, there are 3 different types of averages. There's the mean, the median, and the mode. If you are a math person, you already know what I'm talking about. If you are not a math person, that's okay. The mean is typically what we mean by average, when we add up several numbers and divide, and we have an average. But the median is when you look at all of those numbers that you added and you see which one's in the middle. That may not necessarily be the same answer as when you add them and divide. So you want to be careful about the statistics. Not only can we use facts and statistics, but we can use examples. Examples work really well to demonstrate an idea that we can't describe in words. So for example, there is a movie, Shall We Dance, with Richard Gere, and if you go to this YouTube clip, you can see them dancing the tango. It would be much easier for you to view this than for me to try to explain what it looks like or what the music sounds like. Not only can we give examples, we can compare things. This is a comparison between the Argentine tango versus the American and international style tango. This one, they dance much closer together, and you see their dress is different too. So we can show how things are similar or how things are different. Here we have the salsa. I can compare the salsa to doing the tango. Very different type of vibe there. All right, we can also use quotes. And here I have a really long quote. I wouldn't recommend having this much text on a slide, but I just wanted to have it here for you since we're not in person at the moment. But it was a quote that showed the comparison and difference between the three styles of tango. And it went through the American tango versus the Argentine tango versus the international tango. Now the author is unknown, so I would want some information about the website that I found this on. Since I don't know the author of the quote, I should have at least the website. When you're using a comparison, you want to make sure that even if you are trying to demonstrate differences, that they are somewhat alike. So here I have two types of athletic activities. And yes, dancing is considered a type of athletic activity. So I might be showing differences between swimming and dancing, but I can show the similarities as well. The cardiovascular workout that it is and the strength needed to do it properly. I wouldn't want to compare dancing to going on vacation. It doesn't really make any sense. So make sure you compare similar things. Another type of comparison is the use of a simile or a metaphor. And we will discuss these more in the course later. But similes are comparisons using the word like or as. So you can see that we have the word like right there. There are shortcuts to happiness, and dancing is one of them. It does not have like or as in it. So that is a metaphor. We're saying dancers are the athletes of God. That was from Albert Einstein. That would be a metaphor. There's no like or as in it. We also have the option of using testimony. I referred to this a little earlier, but I'm going to go through it again. Testimony is very helpful in providing some expertise in your speech. This would be a quote or an idea or opinion from an authority figure. We have expert testimony, would be one type of testimony. And that, yes, is from an authority figure, someone with experience in the topic. Perhaps they are a professional, a scientist, they've worked in the field for many, many years, something of that nature. You can also have lay testimony, though. That might be someone just not walking down the street, but a friend or a family member who had an experience with the topic that you're discussing. And they might not have a degree in the area, but they're an example and they have a valid opinion. It may not be 100% true authority, so we have to be careful about that and realize that. But it's still valuable. And then the last point I want to make about authority is to make sure your expert testimony is true authority. We want to make sure that whoever we are quoting actually has some sort of reputable experience in that area. Here's an example from my dancing speech. If you've seen Dancing with the Stars, you may have seen Louis Van Amstel. That was a few years ago, though I don't believe he's on the show anymore. But he's an Emmy-nominated choreographer and a world champion. So if I were to quote something from his website, it would be expert testimony. And there's my large dog, Great Dane, that I love so much. Alright, so we have gone through the different types of evidence that you can use to enhance your speech and help illustrate your ideas. Not only do we want to include evidence and support, but we need to share with the audience where that was from, where we found the fact, and where we found the quote. Not just the person's name, but did you read that in a magazine article? What was the date on that? What was it called? What was the article? And what magazine or periodical? If it's a website, what website was it from? Who wrote the website? Or who sponsors that website? And when was that material put on the internet? So we need to orally cite our sources after our outline is complete and we are practicing our speech. This is crucial to show that you're being honest and you're not stealing someone else's ideas. That's avoiding plagiarism. So giving credit where credit is due. It shows your honesty, but it gives you credibility too. It shows that your ideas are supported by people who are experts in the field. So what do you have to say about the sources? You should give us information on the author, the title, the date, and it's a bonus and important to have the credentials of that person too. So what I could do for a speech on the tango is include an interview. I typically ask each of my classes to interview an expert, so each person interview an expert in the field related to your speech topic. And then you can pull out one thing from that interview and share it with us as support for one of your ideas. You can use more than one quote, but the requirement is just to have one. Now the way I would cite that is as I have posted on this slide here. I would identify it was a personal interview. I need to tell you when it was. So I need to show you it is a personal interview and show you where it was or when it was, and then who it was with. My dance instructor, Tom Sturba. And then I need to include some credentials. So I explain who he is and what he's been doing, why he would be credible. And then I give you his quote, that the woman always starts with her right foot. Though he adds to that. He says it's like that because the woman is always right. I'm not saying I agree. All right, another example. Here's how you could word it a little differently. According to dance professional Christine Dennison's article called A Brief Introduction to Tango Music on TotalTango.com, she states the origins of tango are obscure, but they sprang from the poor and disadvantaged. So I have, according to a dance professional, that gives her credibility. I have her name. I told you it's an article and where I found that article. What am I missing? I'm missing the date. I need to tell you how old this is. Where? I told you where, but when was this posted? And to conclude, one of my favorite quotes, one of my favorite dancers, Ginger Rogers. So go ahead and start that topic outline to get your ideas on paper. Start adding in details from your research.